The following podcast is run by a couple of former wheel turners and one pit guy. It's meant for entertainment, not so much information, but sometimes there's some good information. The opinions expressed are just, these are the morons on the show. Not necessarily right, not necessarily wrong, not the views of any of the sponsors or anything like that. So, these guys, they're going to be talking, they might swear here and there, so if that offends you, either grow up or get a little permission from mom and dad.
All right, race fans, we're back. Episode number 244. Ryan Aho, the legendary Burt Lehman, and the one and only Changa, my old right-hand man on the 71A ride, former track champion over at the Proctor Speedway in the Pure Stock division. What did you win back-to-back, didn't you? You won a couple there your last couple years, didn't you?
Nope, just the last year.
Last year.
I got rained out with the point lead and lost it the year before.
That is some bullshit right there. So, yeah, so former champion, former crew chief, right? Championship crew chief. Burt, of course, you still the editor of Full Throttle over there?
Actually, not anymore because the company has discontinued doing Full Throttle. So
that is bullshit. Nobody likes quitters. Nobody likes quitters. Well, the former editor of editor-in-chief of Full Throttle magazine, and wrote many articles over there in eastern Wisconsin. A little bit of a background there on Burt Lehman. So before we get into the show, a little shout out to one of our sponsors here, Impact Health Sharing. So if you pay for your own health insurance and you're looking at your bills every month and you're like, oh my God, I'm paying way too much for something I basically never use, or you're like, I'm going to a doctor that I don't want to go to because my other doctor is not in network, so to speak. If your deductibles are crazy high and it's just pricing you out of things, I might have an alternative for you. It's called Impact Health Sharing. Hit me up. My number is 218-969-1380. You can text me, call me, hit me up on Messenger, whatever you want to do. I can get you a quote, get you the information to see if we can help you save some money. That way you can spend it on, I don't know, cool stuff like race car parts and stuff like that. So that's Impact Health Sharing. So, guys, let's start with this. So, last week we did a little recap, talked about some of the champions in Wasota, talked about kind of the Wasota season coming down to the end, and might have hit a nerve just a little bit there, Burt. Might have hit a nerve, right? Kind of hit a nerve. And so I'm like, I need to do a little digging. I need to maybe talk to a couple people here, and holy shit. I had an hour-long conversation with the Pure Stock champion, Brent Mindock, which we're going to interview some of the champions later on. We're going to get some of them on the show and kind of go over, but he wasn't really happy. He wasn't like upset with me, but he's like, holy shit, you don't know the whole story of what's going on here, right? And I don't know if you can believe this or not, guys. I know it's hard to believe, but yeah, Billy fucked with him too. I get it. I mean, hard to believe that the Wasota Teching fucked with that guy too. Hard to believe. I know everybody's going to be mad. Wasota board probably mad at me now because I'm picking on Wasota, but unbelievable. So here's kind of a neat thing. So remember last year, Burt, somebody changed the motor, won the track championship, right? At Shawano, wasn't there an incident like that? Something, the guy went home, changed the motor. There was something that happened at the end of the year.
Yeah. Well, so they brought a motor to, they went home, got the motor, brought it to the track. They changed it at the track.
So get this, right? Kind of a cool story. So Mindock went to the Fall Classic, final night of the year, right? What, a point or two down or whatever he was, had to get second, and he goes out in practice on that Thursday, grenades a motor in practice. So he ended up not having a spare, right? So he called a driver from over in the Rice Lake area, the guy that they actually had a pretty good piece or ended up having a lot of shows on it, but he knew him and he says, I need to borrow your motor. So literally he drove over there on Friday, and the heats were on Friday, drove over to Rice Lake from Ogilvie, put the motor in the car, got back to the track just before draw cutoff and was able to go out there, gets a flat. He's running second in the heat, gets a right rear flat, falls back to third, and gets himself into the redraw, goes on to make a late race pass to go from fourth to second, win the national championship. That's going through some shit, right? So that's pretty cool. But he's talking, and he got one night up in Ashland, he was getting teched up there, and they didn't like his shocks in the heat race. They were questioning, and this was before the rule update came out. So Changa, you might know a little bit about this. You're a mechanic. So the rule update on the shocks for pure stocks is you cannot have rebuildable, no adjustable, no racing shocks, but they can't be rebuildable by definition. So they have to be welded on both ends. Well, over half of the guys are running some brand of shock, and I don't know all the brands, but needless to say, it has a snap ring type setup where you can actually rebuild the shock. You ain't going to revalve it at the track or anything, but it's a rebuildable stock replacement OEM type shock, right? Well, they didn't like it. They were unfamiliar with the shock that he had on up in Ashland. They held him in the center of the track so long after the heat race that he didn't even get to race the feature. It's like, what the hell, right? Then they teched him in Rice Lake, the same shocks. They kept him there for 2 weeks. They finally sent him in later, and then that same deal that they ended up DQing him for the shocks at the MPH Invitational, the one, Chongo, where they disqualified the guy for having a standard bolt instead of a metric bolt, right? Mm-hmm. That same Invitational, they found multiple drivers in the top 5 with the same exact shocks, issued them warnings. Literally 2 weeks later, they chose a driver out of the blue and said, yeah, you're disqualified for that. No tech updates until after the fact. So they're massively sick and tired of the just complete drama with all the teching and the nonsense and the bullshit. And he said, I'm done with Wasota racing. Done. I won the championship. I'm done. He's got basically a USRA type late model for next year. He's going to run a crate late, not a crate, because their rules you can run. There's an open motor, must be similar to maybe a B mod, maybe, or something like that they can run in those also. So it's not just 604s and 602s. So he's running a built engine, but he said, I'm going to do that. I don't care to race with Wasota with all the drama with the teching and all the nonsense. I'm just not interested. But he goes, yeah, you needed to hear both sides of the story. And he goes, I did get into Puffy there. He goes, now the camera didn't show it. Puffy came down a little bit in his view, and they made a little contact. And Puffy felt like it was a lot of contact, whatever, but the camera didn't show it. So I didn't see it. He goes, I did make a little contact. I'm like, gotta be honest, man. And I told Puffy this too. I said, you're racing for a national championship. It is what it is, right? I mean, and Puffy said the same thing. He goes, well, we got roll cages and helmets and shit. I ain't got no problem with you're going to move somebody or whatever. You're trying to win a championship. You're doing what you got to do. Gloves are kind of off at that point. Changa, if I'm in second in national points and I have to win or I have to get second, I have to beat the guy to win the national championship. How pissed off would you be at me if I didn't move him a little bit if I had to?
Oh, God, I don't even know if you got to ask that question. You'd probably be more afraid to come back to the pits than anything.
Bert, believe this or not, he might be more competitive and a more sore loser than me, right? He gets a little feisty. We were in Cedar Lake one night, Bert. We're racing for an Addy, and I go in the heat race, and I think I got second in the heat. And he was so mad. He was like literally flipping out. And did you lose your shoe or you kicked it off or what? Up in the grandstands, pit grandstands, you were not happy.
No, I think we lost to Bowmeister, if I remember right. And
in the heat, yep.
Yeah, it was I think it was the sprint car night.
Yeah.
So one of the races my dad comes to, and I want him to, I want to do good because my dad's there. He never comes, and I think I just kicked a rock and my shoe flew off and I looked like a fool, and it was pretty embarrassing.
The feature went pretty good that night, though.
We did win that one.
Yeah, we capped that one off. So, but yeah, I talked to all them guys. I talked to Puffy. I talked to Mindot. Puffy, of course, is like, man, I was already pissed off because I lost the championship. Then I'm getting tore down. And Mindock even said, he goes, I felt bad. He goes, I wish I could have recanted that deal because he already went backwards. He had a bad feature. Things didn't go right. And to add on top of it, now I'm tearing him down at 2:00 in the morning. But Huffy, go ahead, Bert.
Is that a deal where you have to say before the feature you're going to tear him down?
Yeah, that is the rule. So you have to put up the money, $300, I believe. You got to do the protest prior to the start of the feature. So yeah, that's correct. And he's like, if I could have taken it back, I couldn't. But at that point, it was done. It is what it is. But what Puffy was most pissed off about was the way that he got treated by Bill Engelstad. He's like, it was unbelievable. And so bad, in fact, that he's reaching out to some Wasota board members about this. And everybody knows this, right? And I get it. It's 2:00 in the morning. Everybody's probably a little grumpy, but I mean, you're getting tore down, right? You're getting tore down. You just lost the national championship. And now you got a tech guy that's literally just being a dickhead to you the whole time. I mean, that's got to go, right? And it is what it is. We beat this dead horse over and over and over, but he's the face of Wasota. And that's what he said. He goes, his exact words were to me, I was pissed off about how Wasota treated me. I'm like, what do you mean Wasota? He goes, well, Billy. I'm like, he's an employee of Wasota, but from a driver's perspective, he's the guy they see most. So Billy is the face of Wasota, essentially, because that's who the drivers interact with the most. And if that person is just nonstop, just belligerent to the drivers the way he is, how many drivers are going to be, hey, I'm just excited to come back and race Wasota again next year. So it's like, it's just unfortunate, but I had to follow up on that because unbelievable, the drama. I mean, and I get it, right? But the lower classes, right? The Hornets, the Pure Stocks, the Mod 4s, them are the three low, if we tier system the classes, late models is 3 after street stocks and super stocks. Okay, so you got late models, mods, right? Supers, Midwest mods, streets, and then you got Mod 4s and Pures and Hornets, and it just is what it is. Well, is it crazy to you guys that they massively overtech the bottom 3 classes in relation to all the other classes combined? Shouldn't it be the opposite?
Well, I mean, in a perfect world, it should be the same for every division. I mean, but yeah, I mean, we're seeing all this controversy and, like you said, the lower on the tier structure on the lower divisions. And I mean, so apparently all the Wasota late models, modified and super stock drivers are, just following the rules to the T, and they're not breaking any rules.
That has to be it. See, you guys down in the lower classes got to quit being fucking cheaters, right? And you need to pay attention to what all the other classes are doing, and you wouldn't have all these problems. I get it. That's probably that's probably fair. So Changa, you remember this, and we don't need to mention any names, and it's not the current tech guy. It's not the current tech guy in Superior. I want to make that clear. But quite a few years back now, the Pure Stock class was super strong in Superior and Proctor. I mean, there was a shit ton of cars every Friday and every Sunday. And a tech guy came in and he was throwing his weight around and some of it was justified, some of it not, but just massively overteching that class compared to everyone else. And Changa, what happened as a result?
Well, you get what you have today. You got about 6 to 8 cars at each class because everybody said, the hell with it, I'm going to go fishing or I'm going to move up or what have you. And now, and not just Proctor and Superior, but you're finding other tracks that are dumping them. I believe, Hibbing doesn't have the Pure Stocks anymore because there's just no numbers anymore.
Right. And that's the thing. So they got to watch what they're doing there, the tech guys. I mean, so this came from Brent. He's like, he's talked to specifically Kenny and Pogo. And these guys have been, we know that they've been the Gestapo out there fucking with everybody. Both of these drivers at different times in conversations with Brent said, look, at this one race, there was at least 30 different cars that I could have DQ'd for something. And I tell you what, if they don't get their shit fixed, I'm gonna next time. What are you talking about? I got DQ'd for freaking this, that, and the other, and you just told me there's 30 cars you could have DQ'd and didn't? Is it like selective teching here? That's where there's an issue, right? If it's consistent across the board and you treat people right, then it's fine. But it's just not that way right now. And I don't know if it, with the people that are in place right now, I don't know if it can ever get that way. But man, I wish the board would just wake up and put the right people in place so we can have some consistency and just treat people better. But yeah, losing a Wasota car is going to be gone. He's going USRA racing next year, and that's unfortunate, and that's all because of the way he got treated. And that's coming off a championship year, so that's an unfortunate deal. Speaking of some, I guess we'll go back to super stocks. Bert, you might recognize this name because he ran some asphalt stuff. You might have seen him, but do you remember the name Gordy Brunette?
Oh, what's the last name?
Brunette.
The last name sounds familiar.
Yeah, back in it would have been probably the early 90s or around in the 90s sometime. He ran some asphalt stuff over there in eastern Wisconsin. But he was a super stock ace, hell of a driver in the super stock class. I think he was Rice Lake area, somewhere in that vicinity, Cameron, Rice Lake, somewhere in that area. Won a lot of races. Really good race car driver back in the day, turned fabricator, built the Brunette chassis, and really nice piece. In fact, Buzzy Adams won a national championship in the super stock in a Brunette chassis. Kurt Myers won a Wasota street stock national championship in a Brunette chassis. Life kind of hit him hard. He kind of had a rough patch there for quite a few years, kind of what it is, but tragically, mid-50s this past weekend, got in a car accident and lost his life. So just want to give a shout out to Gordy Brunette, his friends, his family, everybody that knows him down in the Rice Lake area. It's, he's a super stock guy. I'm a super stock guy. So when you see people in the super stock family, especially, pass away, it's definitely kind of hits home. And, ran a lot of races against some of his cars, but I figured you might recognize that name, Bert, because I know he ran some asphalt stuff over there, and you can look that up after the show, see if you recognize him or not. So just want to give a shout out there. But let's jump into the top 5 stories of this past week, brought to you by our friends over at Fastlane Motorsports and Powder Coating in Ashland, Wisconsin. And they are the #1 sponsor, of course, of the Northland Superstock Series. And they have a lot of sponsors, but that's the title sponsor. We call it the Fastlane Superstock Series. Custom fabricating, powder coating, sandblasting. They build the Galloper chassis. I had pretty good success in their modified back in the day. Actually, when I won down in Florida, that was in a Galloper chassis from Chris. But I tell you what, you're not going to meet better people over there. He does a lot for the racer, a lot for the sport, a lot for different racetracks and series. And so if you're in that time of year, right, you're building cars, if you need parts, give them guys a call. They can ship to anywhere. They'll take good care of you. And speaking of the Fastlane series, Dennis McCulley, I don't know if you saw this online, Changa, he had a procedure, some kind of a heart procedure. I don't know if it was a stint or exactly what it was, but sounds like things went well. But I want to give a shout out to Dennis there. Get back on the mend there, buddy. Good to hear that the surgery went well. And yeah, it's a little bit nerve-wracking when you see all these people we know going into hospitals for heart treatments and all that kind of stuff. So want to give a shout out to Dennis. He does a lot for racing. I know the super stock guys especially really love that guy. So let's get to it. Number 5, the last race of the season in, we'll call it Wasota country. This not, of course, a Wasota event. Wasota season was done a week ago, but they had the topless at Ogilvie this past weekend, and that's a fundraising event. I don't know if you guys knew that. It's a topless. It's I don't know, breast cancer awareness month, I think it is, or just cancer awareness month. And so I don't exactly know how it all works and how much they raise, but they definitely raise funds for cancer. Might be for various cancers, I don't know, but that's a fundraising event for that. So that's a shout out to Ogilvie right there. That's a pretty cool deal to have an event specifically for that. And the winners, Justin Strelitzky, of course, the Hornet national champion, he won in the Hornets. Tommy Bowden won in the Mod 4s. Tim Johnson, old Sasquatch, getting it done in the street stocks. Jason Vandekamp getting it done in the Midwest Mods. David Swearingen kind of let me down. I'm going to be honest. He's kind of screwed me out of points in our Pick'ems deal. I picked him at the Fall Classic. He doesn't even show up. Then I pick him at this race, and they forget to put the transponder on the car. And looked to me like he probably won the heat, but it was a little close, and they gave him second, which buried him in the heat race, or in the feature. He had to start 13th, I think, and he got second. Lost to Vandy on that, so that was kind of a bummer. Dexton Cook, national champion. He won in the supers. Clayton Wagaman in the mods. And I know you guys can't guess this, but Mr. Ogilvy late model driver, this guy's about unbeatable there. The old double one express Pat Dorr getting it done in the late models. So anything I know, Bert, did you watch any of the topless at all? I didn't think you did. Chonga did. I know you watched you said the late model race was good. Anything stick out to you? I got a couple little things, but anything stick out to you at Ogilvy?
Well, I really thought that Mod 4 race was exciting to watch the last handful of laps there with Bowden coming from like third or fourth to win that thing late on the last lap pass. That was a lot of fun to watch.
Holtquist got second, right?
Yeah, second and third.
Incidentally, they're not friends. They're not friends.
No, not at all. And that's why I thought I didn't think he could win, because I thought between the two of them, that one of them would use them up.
And I got to be honest, I don't know any of them personally. I know kind of all the shit and drama, all that happened over the course of the year. And I got to give a tip of the cap there to TB81, because nothing against Dustin Holtquist and Robert Holtquist, but kind of turned into a TB81 fan, because I kind of feel like he got absolutely flat out screwed out of a natty. So congratulations on that win. That was pretty cool to see. So anything else?
I watched the mod feature. That was kind of ho-hum. Wagon kind of had that one under control once he got to the lead. Dorr, once he got to the lead, he stretched it out a bit, but it looked like maybe he was going away a little at the end, and they kind of caught back up to him, but never really threatened to beat him, you know?
Yeah, you know what stuck out to me, not necessarily on the racing side, but the fan count, was pretty decent. The weather was good. I mean, can you guys remember September, early October, where the weather's been this freaking good? Like, I mean, pretty much all the invitationals got in, right? I mean, the weather was super cooperative. There was around 30 cars from Thunder Bay at the topless at Ogilvy. Around 30 cars. That's astounding. I mean, the Iron Range is literally just up the road, hour and a half, 2 hours or whatever from Ogilvy up north. And there was a small handful of Iron Range cars there. And you got 30 coming down from Thunder Bay. Tell you what, when racing is strong north of the border, it helps all the invitationals. So that was really cool to see. But again, hats off to the Ogilvy Raceway for doing that fundraising. There's several tracks that do that kind of stuff, and we should maybe get a little bit better about giving them a shout out when that stuff happens, because there's the racing community as a whole. When there's fundraising stuff needed, or somebody's in need of money or having health issues, I tell you what, whether you like the person or not, people come together in the racing family to support their own. And I feel like that's a pretty cool deal, and that's just another example of it at Ogilvy. Speaking of Ogilvy, we'll go to number 4. Too close for comfort, maybe. Midwest mod driver Randy Hopp from Chisholm, Minnesota. So kind of my neck of the woods up there. So he rolled over. Bert, I don't know if you saw the picture. In the picture, it looked like his head bounced off the racetrack when he rolled over, because it was topless. Right. And the picture it showed, and he had a mohawk on top of the helmet, because a lot of people were doing kind of neat stuff because it's topless. Right. And I reached out to Eric Anderson, because Eric builds his motors over there. Perfect Performance. Give him a shout out. He said his head did not actually hit the track. It looked like it hit the track, but his head did not hit the track. They looked at the mohawk. They looked at the helmet. It was very, very close, but the camera angle was weird. He said it didn't actually hit. But sitting in the car, the helmet was like right at roll cage height. So that leads me to this question. Okay. We don't need to get into all the weeds on all the nonsense in teching, but let's just face it. Some of the tech guys have put a major focus on complete nonsense that, in my opinion, is just nothing more than drama. There's some cars out there in various classes, especially some of the older cars where the roll cages are fairly low. And it's an issue. You get a taller driver and their helmet is like at roll cage height. I know people like Don Ishins, he's got to be what, 6'4". He had an issue for years trying to find a car. Like he had to have special roll cages built that were taller because otherwise his head was above the roll cage because he's tall, right? Big guy. Well, I would wonder if this is something that's ever really been looked at. Should tech guys spend more time on safety aspects than they do at some of these tracks rather than spending time worrying about how many bolts they have across the back of their roof or if they have standard bolts? I mean, what's your guys' thoughts?
Well, I think that's a really good point. I mean, never, we used to always, you go to a racetrack the first night and they'd a lot of tracks that tech your car and mostly they would tech your safety items, and never once has anybody asked me to sit in the car with my helmet on to even see anything like that, and you tip over and you don't got your belt cinched tight, you're going to move a little bit in the seat even with the crotch belt. I mean, my goodness, I can't even imagine hitting your head on the track like that. And not only that, the driver's got to pay more attention too. I mean, they gotta not take for granted that they're safe. I mean, they gotta pay a little attention too.
Us race car drivers are not real smart. I mean, I don't know if this is new to you guys. Us race car drivers, not smart, right? Safety, who gives a shit, right? How many times do you see people with racing suits that are all ripped up and it looks like they rolled around in gear oil and grease, and it's like, that thing's probably more flammable than anything else you have. Like, that's supposed to be a fire retardant suit. Like, what are you doing? And that's the thing is that I think you gotta, I mean, you're right. I mean, it should be on the driver to kind of police themselves and make sure they're safe in the car. I mean, 100%, but that's just not going to happen, right? I remember back in the day, hobby stock class and all that, they'd do a brake check to make sure when you hit the brakes, all four tires would lock up and they would check the roll cage. I remember seeing a car when I was in Hibbing, I was on the board and there was a pure stock there and his head it had to have been a full inch and a half above the top of the roll cage. And I'm like, dude, we can't, like, you're going to have to lower your seat or you can't race. Like, I'm sorry. Like, we cannot let you out there like that. In good conscience, if you go out there, break your neck and die, that we can't have that. Like, you got to make sure you're safe. Seat belts, right? Arm restraints, window nets, whatever, all the different safe. They used to check fuel cell, because that's another thing. Another fuel cell came out of a freaking race car, right? Because the fuel cell brackets are junk. So checking that type of stuff, that's stuff that absolutely should be teched and checked really closely. I remember, Changa remembers this. So Bert, we're in Proctor and we parked just down from the pit building. You never been to Proctor, have you, Bert?
No.
So just down from the pit building, we parked and there was a so they were, I think it was during hot laps or packing, and we had our car, we always had our car up on all four. Car was always in the air. And I'm down at the building and I'm looking at the lineups, right? And I'm looking at all that. And next thing you know, somebody just ran into your car in the pits. I'm like, what are you talking about? So this pure stock guy come rolling through the pits and literally ran into my car. Pure stock guy ran into my car. And I think you were underneath there or just got out from there. Whitney was underneath there scraping mud, my daughter, just before that, because we had hot laps. And the pure stock guy drove into my car. And I went down there. I'm like, dude, what the fuck are you doing? Like, how do you run into a car on stands in the pits? Like, what do you kill somebody? What are you doing? He's like, I got no brakes. What do you mean you got no brakes? He goes, yeah, my brake lines are all rusted out in the back. I got no brake. I mean, I'm thinking originally like, oh, I lost the brakes in hot laps. He hadn't had brakes the first couple nights he was out there. I'm like, you take a shit box and go home, fix the brakes. You can't race like that. If people aren't checking that, people will do just dumb shit out there and put themselves in harm's way. And I was happy to hear that his head did not hit, but that is something that really should be more of an emphasis from these tracks, because let's face it. I mean, if there's a fatality at a racetrack because of something that they maybe could have checked and should have checked, regardless if it's the fault of the racetrack, they allowed that car to race regardless. There's going to be a lawsuit against the racetrack and their insurance company. It'll probably close the place down. The track down in Yuma, Arizona, that Cocopah, they're not opening up. And I don't think there was a fatality, although I'm not positive, but they had a major insurance claim. And the you know how it works, right? When you have an insurance claim, the premiums go up because they want their money back out of you. Well, the premiums got raised so high that they could no longer justify operating the racetrack because they could not afford to, and it essentially closed the place down. So I'm telling you, promoters, you need to talk to your tech guys, make sure to put more emphasis on safety stuff than all this nonsense, and that should be first and foremost. So number 3, speaking of down in the southwest down there, Veto, New Mexico had the USRA Nationals down there. I don't know if that's what they named it, but it was some kind of nationals or whatever down at Veto. 3 nights of racing. USRA modifieds, 30 large to the winner. The thriller Cade Dillard parking it in victory lane. Now, I'm going to ask you guys this. Is Cade Dillard the clear-cut fastest modified in the country in 2024?
In the races that he races, yeah. I mean, he doesn't race modifieds full time, but any event that he's at, I mean, I would say he's the driver you got to pick to win.
Changa, did you watch anything down at Veto?
I did. I watched the third night down there, and that he won the first night, so he started pole the third night. He was never really challenged at all, and he had an engine going bad on him there, and he was surprised it even made it till the end, and he darn near spun out with about 10 to go, and they still had nothing for him. I mean, he had the dominant car no matter, he could drive anywhere on the racetrack and they couldn't gain nothing on him.
Yeah, I mean, they had the $100,000 to win show, the big deal at Mississippi Thunder Speedway, and he flat out dominated that deal as well. So, I mean, if in our pick'ems, if we know he's there, he's the pick. I mean, he's the guy. In fact, I know there's a few of his cars heading to Wasota country. There's a few Wasota guys that bought, what are they, CDR chassis for 2025. So be interesting to see how them drivers transition from their current rides over to that. But man, I mean, he's pretty good in the late model too, but that modified, I mean, it's crazy. And you look at, I mean, it's not like he's racing against ho-hum drivers. The USMTS guys, Jake Tim, Jim Chisholm, Joe Chisholm, Sanders, these are elite top level modified talents, and he's making them look like bums. I mean, it's not even close. And that's hard to do because them guys are damn good racers. But I tell you what, be interesting to see if there's some big money shows in 2025. I would expect to see Dillard there. I think all the modified guys can hope for is that maybe they'll schedule them big money mod races against late model races, and he can't be there. That would be beneficial to them. So, speaking of late model guys and modified guy, right? They had the Dirt Track World Championship this past weekend, the finale of the Lucas Oil Dirt Late Model Series at the Big E at Eldora. RTJ the champ. He's crowned the champ, but is Bobby Pierce still king?
Well, yeah, I mean, Bobby Pierce is definitely the top late model driver this year. But I was impressed with RTJ. I mean, Eldora hasn't necessarily been a track he's had a lot of success at, and he finished in the top 5 and wasn't going to let the championship slip away like it did last year.
Well, he sure freaking tried. He sure
Oh, yeah.
tried. He tried. So JD and Coach Kraus argued with me. Tonga will too. JD was going to win that race. JD was going to win. He's biding his time. He's in conserve mode. He's just kind of idling around the racetrack, doing his thing, staying out of trouble. And then the laps are ticking down. He got to a certain point, and he's like, you know what? I think it's time for me to be out front now. He takes the lead, and just before he can start putting on his flat out, I'm driving away from everyone, blew an engine, night over. And RTJ came from, what did he start, 13th in that deal?
No.
No, he started third.
I mean, not RTJ, my bad. Pierce.
Bobby Pierce, yeah.
Pierce was 14th, yeah.
Yeah, Pierce started, 13, 14, 7th row. And he got to the lead, and it's a half-mile racetrack. It's a big racetrack. I think he put a half a straightaway on second. Like, he took the lead, and it was a half a straightaway ahead in the lap. I'm like, holy shit. So, do you think, I know Pierce was fast at the end of the deal, right? Do you think JD was conserving? Do you think it would have been just a straight up domination by the 32 even if JD would have stayed out there? Or do you think JD would have done JD things at Eldora and made this deal a race with BP 32?
Well, I tell you, you go back, you talk about RTJ almost wrecking himself. JD did the same thing. He got into the side of someone. I thought he was going to bend up the front of the car when he did that and darn near turn it around. And I think, JD always kind of conserves in them 100-lap races. He's the best there is in the world at doing that, probably. But Pierce was kind of, he would gain his spots a little bit on the restarts, and he was kind of riding around for a long period of time, just running back there in 6th and 7th place for a long time, just riding around, probably more waiting for a restart to gain the positions, and then, needless to say, once he got the lead, he ended up winning by darn near 7 seconds, put a half a track on second, and he made it look really easy. But, he also kind of found a line that the other guys didn't find, So I think Pierce would have drove away from JD too, because, JD hasn't had nothing for him there the last 2 times they've been there.
Bert, what do you think?
I think Pierce probably would have still won. I think it would have been closer than, first and second would have been closer than what it was with the car that finished second. But I don't know. There's something about Pierce this year. He just has something figured out. And it just looked like, Pierce was just running along. And all of a sudden it was like he flipped a switch and it's like, okay, it's time to get to the front. And he just marched to the front.
So Changa literally in our pick'ems, Bert, he's like, if Bobby Pierce is there, I pick BP 32. That's who I take. 30 Pierce. I take him for every single race. He's there. I take Pierce. JD has had nothing. He didn't have nothing for him the last 2 times he was at Eldora. Changa, who did you pick?
I picked Davenport. He owns Eldora.
Out for you. That didn't work out very good for you.
It didn't work so well.
RTJ though, yeah, he ended up getting third, right? Did he get third or fourth?
Third.
Yeah.
T-Mac was second.
Yeah, T-Mac was second.
10-ish to go, somewhere in that neighborhood. He smacked the right rear against the fence and about knocked the deck out of that thing. And I thought he was going to rip the spoiler completely off. And there had to have been like flashbacks of 2023. When he hit the wall, I bet his heart skipped a beat, right? Because Moran was close enough in points that if RTJ DNF'd, Moran wins the points. So RTJ had to finish. And I tell you what, he dang near gave that deal away, smacking into the wall, but was able to capitalize on it and take home the Lucas Oil Dirt Late Model Series Championship for 2024. So congratulations to RTJ. Speaking of Lucas Oil, schedule dropped. So Bert, you got that in front. You said you're going to maybe print that out or whatever.
Yep.
A couple things stick out to me. So a lot of money on the line. I think this year it was $200,000 to win, $100,000 for fourth, I believe is what it was. $250,000 to win next year. $250,000 to win the Lucas Oil Championship. But several of those races on the schedule, Bert, more money on the line. It looks like there's some 50 and 75. There's some pretty good coin there's a couple things that stuck out to me, but what stuck out to you most when the schedule dropped in? Are you surprised? I mean, it's October. Are you surprised that the schedule dropped for Lucas Oil already? Usually it's at the PRI show.
Actually, I'm not surprised because it's funny because I think it was, I don't know, it was several years ago. On Facebook, I shared the Lucas Oil schedule several years ago, and it popped up in my Facebook memories the other week, the same week that the schedule was released. So it has been released this early in the past. So
Okay.
I wasn't totally surprised by that. I mean, what surprised me was how early they're starting. Did they start this early last year?
What do you
January
like,
4th.
I was gonna
January
say
4th.
they start at Speed Weeks.
January 14th is their first race. Well,
Is that at Gold? Is that a
Golden out? Yeah. Because
I feel like no, I don't think they did, because I feel like the Sunshine Nationals and the Winter Nationals at Volusia bookended Speed Weeks. I feel like I could be wrong, but I thought it started and ended at Volusia, and the second week after Volusia, they went to Golden Isles, but I could be wrong.
Because
I'm not positive.
actually, when I first saw the schedule, I thought, are they scheduling over the top of the Wild West Series? And but the Wild West Series ends on January 12th, I believe. So, but I mean, if there's any Lucas cars who want to race in the Wild West Series, that I don't anticipate many Lucas cars racing in the Wild West Series because of that.
What's the first day at Golden Isles?
They have a practice on January 14th and then a race on the 15th.
And the last race at Veto or whatever they call it is the 12th.
I think so.
So it's really only that must end on Sunday, and then it must be like a Thursday, Friday, Saturday deal at Golden Isles, or Wednesday. Was it 3 days?
I'm not sure. I could be wrong on the 12th date. It's a little bit earlier, but
yeah, that is interesting though. I mean, there's not a lot of travel time there, right? I mean, that is definitely, you got to be all the way across the country. I mean, New Mexico to Brunswick, Savannah area of Georgia is a long ass drive. I mean, that is a long ways across there. So that is interesting. I feel like traditionally there's a week in between there anyway, but there's really not much of an off season anymore. So that is a surprise. Are you surprised they went back to, they're going back to Huset's?
Well, it wasn't, it was kind of up in the air whether they were. I mean, there wasn't any fans. There wasn't, I mean, they pay a lot of money to get no fans. It's kind of sprint car country over there.
And they're paying more. They're paying more now. Bert, what are they paying next year? Is it 75?
Yeah.
Yeah, so they upped it. I mean, Todd Queering is not opposed. Yeah, he's not opposed to spending money.
10,000, and 75 for the final night.
Okay.
Well, but when they raced at Huset this year, they announced that they were going back next year, so I wasn't totally shocked by that.
Oh, they did?
Yeah.
So I hope they get more support for that deal. I mean, you're putting up that kind of money. They had a pretty light car count. I think it was like right around 30 or maybe even just shy of that. They did not have a good car count, and they had a terrible fan count. I mean, Houston is a great racetrack. I look at it more of a sprint car track than a late model track, but they can produce good late model racing as well. Hopefully it gets more support. But there's another bull ring, and I don't know that they've ever been there before. There's another bull ring on the schedule that kind of surprised me. And I got to be honest, I was the man at this place on the World of Outlaw sprint car game on PlayStation back in the day. Eagle Raceway, Eagle, Nebraska, Bert. Is that 75 large to win too?
50.
50. Is that a 3-day or a 2-day show there?
3-day, 10, and 50.
So
10,000, 10,000, 50,000.
That's another bull ring right there, right? So Turbo Tyler Erb likes them bull ring, them type of tracks. I mean, that's got to be on the fun tour. It's got to be on the fun tour, right?
I got a good one for you guys with this all these prices or the payouts going out. Okay, so a couple of things I saw on the Lucas website. So Bobby Pierce, right? He's got He was 5th in fast times, 4th in podiums, 4th in 4 times he had the fastest lap. He was 3rd in the Lucas Oil in laps led. He had the 3rd most wins in Lucas Oil. Ran 16 shows out of the 42 or whatever they ran. Okay, they're paying more money after what he went through with the DQ with the World of Outlaws. Is there a chance we could see him jump ship and go run Lucas?
Boy, there is. I mean, it's more money, right?
Right.
I mean, and he's been there, done that. I guess he won the World of Outlaws last year. He could still win it this year. He's got a little work to do. He's got work to do. 3 shows to get it done. But in his mind, he feels like he's been robbed, right? Because he stands by the fact that, hey, and I don't know if he did or not. I know that tire doping is a big deal. There's a lot of people that have done it and do it and still do it and still will do it, right? So I don't know if he did or not, but he stands by the fact that his tires were legal and did not dope the tires, and he got screwed. And if he wouldn't have got DQ'd that night, he'd have a 50-point lead or more in the World of Outlaws right
I
now.
think he'd have about like a 98-point lead or something.
Yeah, it'd be a bunch.
I think it was like 140 or 142-point show that he lost.
Yeah, something somewhere in that neighborhood, between 50 and 100, somewhere in there. But he'd be the clear leader, and that's possible. That is possible, and we'll get into the silly season talk here in a minute because I got a few things for you on the silly season. But I don't know. I could definitely see that. And they do race plenty of Lucas races right there in Illinois. I mean, they got the Illinois Speed Weeks. They race at Fairbury. They race at, and so I mean, he can hit both. I mean, it's kind of a good thing for the resume to say that, hey, I won the World of Outlaw and Lucas Oil Series. I mean, that would be a good thing for the resume, and it's clear that he's the fastest car. So I don't know. He could definitely he could make that transition. That is some reckless speculation there. It'll be kind of fun to see what happens with BP 32. What do you think, Bert? You think he could any chance he jumps ship and makes his way over to Lucas?
Well, you're kind of ruining my comments for later in the show.
All right. Well, we'll save that. You can stand by. We will save that. All right. Let's jump into number 1. So congratulations again, Bobby Pierce, Dirt Track World Championship, getting that done. Lucas Oil Series Championship to RTJ. But number 1, here's a question for you. 1984 Yankee Dirt Track Classic winner. Name the driver.
What year?
1984 Yankee Dirt Track Classic. 1984, this driver had 29 wins.
Jeff Purvis.
2-time Wasota Late Model Challenge Series champion. 1986 Wasota Late Model National champion.
Lance Matthees.
Lance Matthees. So I don't know if, for those living under a rock, right? Lance Matthees, Winona, Minnesota, Southern Minnesota driver, getting inducted into the 2025 National Dirt Late Model Hall of Fame. That takes place at the North-South 100 at Florence, Kentucky. Congratulations, Lance Matthees. I mean, the guy's won a lot of races. I didn't realize he has 300-plus wins. He's got 45 feature wins at Cedar Lake. Now, back in the day, Cedar Lake was the mecca of regional late model racing in our area. And 45 wins at Cedar, that's a tall task. I mean, that was the who's who.
That was the heyday of Eggersdorf.
It was. And boy, I always remember that iconic black car with the fluorescent orange and the chromed out number. I mean, he had badass looking stuff. Lance always had really sharp stuff. And then he transitioned. He's still racing today, of course. But Matthews Enterprises built some really cool toters and trailers. So he's been racing has been his deal forever. And so really cool to see him jump in. Either of you got any Lance Matthews stories? Any favorite Lance Matthews memories?
I don't have any specific stories. I just, being on the eastern side of the state, I always looked forward to when Shauna would have a special and the Western drivers would come out, and Matthews was always one of them that I looked forward to watching race in eastern Wisconsin.
Yeah, and Bert, he's an Eastern guy. He's not a Western guy.
Well,
don't be calling him a Wisconsin person. What are we doing here? All right, he's not from Wisconsin. Don't be doing that. Don't disrespect Lance Matthees by calling him a cheesehead. Okay, don't do that. All right, he's from southeastern Minnesota, so he's an eastern guy. You're eastern Wisconsin. He's eastern Minnesota.
But
You got that's very disrespectful of you, and you can maybe submit that apology in writing. I'm not really sure how you want to do it,
but
but
probably one of my favorite Matthews stories is the one that you always tell.
I do have that. Changa, any favorite memories of Lance before I got my favorite Lance Matthews story.
Well, I may not even have this story right, but we were down running the super stock at Menominee the one night, and there's a hell of a battle for the lead with, I want to say it was him and Dorr and Eggersdorf just duking it out for a win. We're sitting in the pit stands, and a rock comes right off his tire and drills my ex-wife, and she's all bloody. It hits her, hits you in the shoulder, and you're over there whining about your shoulder after she had gotten hit with it first.
I didn't know that was off Lance's car. You know, he probably did that on purpose. Nice. So I remember going down to the Fox Ridge Speedway. You might have been there, Changa, Arcadia, and I'm running second or third in the feature. I think Bob Tim maybe was leading that deal. And I was in the Faggers late model rookie year, and we're running good. We were up in the top 3, top 4, but Fox Ridgebert was dark. They didn't have very good light. Corners were very dark, and a bigger track, not Shawano big, but a big 3/8, right? And the spud on the back of I had the oil pump, and then you got the power steering, and that all ties together. It's a tandem deal, and there was a spud, and it broke, and I lost fuel pressure, and the car shut off going on the front straightaway, and I ended up rolling to the top of 1 and 2, and I'm stopped there, right? I'm stopped, and it's when you're sitting there and you're parked on the track, it feels like an hour, but probably just a couple seconds or whatever. And I'm sitting there, and all of a sudden, wham! I'm like, holy shit. Lance drove right through me. I mean, literally went from just having a broken spud on the oil pump to like destroying the side of the car, everything on the left front. I mean, he just yard sailed me, right? Now I'm pissed. I'm like, God, we're freaking broke. We're broke late model drivers. We had no money. We were like no business financially being in that class at all, right? And they used to have the building up on the top of the hill, concession building. That's where he went for payout. Now, Lance had, and he since has had eye surgery. He's had the LASIK deal, but he had Coke bottle glasses. They were thick ass Coke bottle glasses, right? Big old flow hair with the Coke bottles. And he's up there bullshitting with Joel Kreiderman, and I got my check, and I looked at him, and I'm like, dude, what the fuck? I'm like I was fucking parked. Like, what were you doing? And he takes his glasses off, and he hands them to me. He goes, well, you try looking through them. Fair enough. All right, fair enough. I'm like, so I went from being like, I mean, I wasn't mad. I mean, I was mad, but because I was more mad because I was broke and I couldn't afford to fix shit. But yeah, he just, without skipping a beat, here, you try looking through him, he says. I'm like, all right, Lance, fair enough. All right. And he's like, sorry about that. Because I think he tore shit up too. So he probably wasn't extremely happy either. But congratulations, Lance Matthees. Great career. Very well deserved. Great seeing another Minnesota late model driver inducted into the National Dirt Late Model Hall of Fame. A guy that, we grew up as kids. And yes, Lance, that means you're definitely older than us. But we definitely grew up. He's one of the guys that we enjoyed watching. And not that there's not great late model drivers. No, there is. But, man, it seemed like there was so many of them back, in that era of the 90s and through that era. And he was one of the best for sure. So, let's jump into a little fan feedback brought to you by friends of ours here at Daytona One Performance Lubricants. And Buck, the founder, he's actually in the Hall of Fame as well. He's in the NASA Hall of Fame. Yes, aerospace, NASA, specifically for lubricants. He's created a lot of stuff for a lot of different industries, a lot of different lubricants, and he's passionate about dirt track racing, specifically how do we keep the cost down and keep the sport alive and flourishing. And the best way to do that is to be able to make your stuff last longer, and the right lubricants will do that. And he's got everything from gear oils to power steering fluid to engine engine oil and lots of different products. He's got a tire treatment product out there that, he has a cleaner, he has tire treatment. There's a lot of drivers out there. Speaking of Brent Mindock, guys, it's $500 to win the national championship, I believe, in a pure stock. I think that's what it is. What do you think he spent on tires in a pure stock to get that done in 2024? Just his tires. What do you think his tire bill was?
$8,000
For the whole year?
For the whole year. Pure stock, though. But keep in mind, they get paid like $100 to win, right? $4,000. $4,000. So his tire bill was 8 times more than what he's probably going to get paid to win the Natty, right? Financial disaster. Well, if you're that driver going out, I can't do that, right? Well, you might consider checking into the treatments, and I'm just going to tell you straight up that it's at your own risk, because Wasota still doesn't like it. They want you to spend money at Hoosier and buy more tires, which I think is stupid, because most people can't afford that. They only last one night, but they have a product out there being used by many drivers. In fact, it's legal in the Gen X late model series out in like Madison and I-94. They can actually do whatever they want to their tires. But call Chad up. His number 507-828-3536, and learn about all the products, but learn about the tire treatments. If you're a budget racer and you're like, you know what, screw it, I cannot put new tires on all the time, this will help your budget. Again, at your own risk, because Wasota doesn't like it. They will deem you illegal. But I tell you what, would you rather take a chance, or would you rather just quit racing because you can't afford it anymore? That choice is yours. And he has some great products out there to help you out. So we'll start with late models here. So Tom asked this. He goes, silly season is essentially here. And Changa segued in by asking, hey, is Pierce Lucas Oil, World of Outlaw? What do you think? Put in the comments below. What do you guys think? Should he go to Lucas Oil after he feels he got slighted by World of Outlaws? What do you think? There's definitely a possibility, but there's a lot of other stuff happening in the dirt late model world. Moving, and shit, it's been silly season all year, right? With the Huddy deal, the RTJ deal. I mean, there's been T-Mac deal, right? So sources have told me a few different things that are going on here. Okay. So you saw a little bit of buzz online, probably both you did, about Josh Richards, right? Sounds like Josh Richards, Kid Rocket, going to be back in the late model potentially in 2025. And I don't know if he's going to run full-time, part-time, but the rumor is, right, sources are telling me that he's going to be back in the late model. And the house car driver, sounds like that deal's about signed, sealed, delivered, done. Sounds like, you guessed it, Brandon Shepard, probably going to be in Rocket One. Now, he moved on from Rocket One, and then he did the deal he has and became the house car driver. My sources tell me that he mainly left because he wanted to be home. He had, another kid on the way. He wanted more home time. Well, then he found out, shit, I'm in Charlotte more than I'm home. I might as well just go back to Rocket One. And, that was a well-oiled machine. And he's been struggling in the Longhorn deal. So first of all, you guys' thoughts, is that a good deal? You think that's going to be, I get it. Sheppy's leading World of Outlaw points. He's only got 3 wins though. And he hasn't been ultra fast. Is he going to be stronger if he in fact does go back to Rocket One, more or less wins than he had in 2024? And do you think that's the best decision for him?
He'll have more wins. I think it's a good decision. I mean, he's already proved that he can win in that car. So I mean, if he goes back to that car, I think they'll be expected to be back up where they were when he left.
Tonga, any feelings on that?
Well, I would have to assume that, or I guess the rumors I'm hearing are, if they're going to run 2 rocket cars, one's going to run Lucas, one's going to run Woo. Now, I don't know who's going to go where, but if Sheppy goes to Lucas, who the hell knows? I don't know that he can win any there, honestly. And, if he goes to the World Outlaws, he could maybe win a whole pile of them if Pierce moved over to Lucas,
Well, yeah, that's definitely a good question. And I don't know if that, yeah, there's some speculation going on. We haven't seen an official press release. That would be interesting to see them split up. I mean, I get it. You're trying to win both, kind of like the Browers did in street stock racing, but boy, you'd think you'd just want to kind of race together and kind of build that notebook together. But I mean, I guess we'll see what happens there.
Gotta
So
be
now,
cheaper too.
right, probably be cheaper. So now we go to the Longhorn house car. Of course, Brandon Shepherd in the Longhorn house car right now. Well, my sources are telling me, and I've touched on this earlier in earlier episodes, everything is pointing towards big, sexy Brandon Overton becoming the house car driver at Longhorn. Bert, any guesses on who the crew chief is rumored to be?
The one that always finds a different driver every year.
Nope. RTJ's old right hand man pitting for Honey right now, Burrows. So word on the street, sources are telling me Overton Burrows partnering up to be the house car program at Longhorn. Now, Overton looked pretty good in that Infinity by Wells right out of the gate, but he has struggled throughout the stretch run here. I mean, he wasn't even finishing on the podium in Hunt the Front series, and nothing against them guys, but that's not World of Outlaws. That's not Lucas. It's different caliber of drivers, and he was having a hard time hitting the podium there. I would have to think him making that switch with Burrows, if that's in fact what happens, could he be a contender? Could we expect to see him in the championship battle at the end of the year in Lucas Oil?
Well, anything's possible. You know my answer to that. But yes, I mean, he's proven that he can win races when he's in the right equipment. I mean, that one year he was unbeatable.
Well, here's the next question. Will he be in Lucas Oil? Because this year he ran Hunt the Front, mostly regional stuff, and some bigger shows. What's he going to do? Right? Is the Longhorn house car team, are they going to race for a championship? Are they just going to run for money? What are they going to do? If that's in fact what happens, what do you think, Changa? Do you think Overton will, he's not a guy that's really ran for a lot of championships like Lucas Oil World of Outlaw. Would you expect to see him, if he's in that house car, racing for a championship? Or do you think he's going to go back to what he does and kind of float around from race to race?
Well, history would tell us that, you go back to a few years back when he won $1 million. I mean, the guy, he just bounced around and hit money races and won a whole pile of them. But, I guess, I don't know. I guess Longhorn's probably going to have a say in that too, and whether they want him to run a series or not. But I would think if it's up to him, I think he's just going to bounce around and hit the races he wants.
250,000 reasons to run the Lucas Oil Championship Series next year. So it'll be interesting to see what happens with Big Sexy. Now, if Mark Richards is bringing on Brandon Shepherd, where's T-Mac going to go? Where's T-Mac going to go? So my sources are telling me this. T-Mac is looking to be partnering up and racing for Boom Briggs in 2025. And Boom Briggs is reported to be mostly hanging up the steering wheel, maybe running a limited, couple shows here and there. But word on the street right now, T-Mac to drive for Boom Briggs and Boom Briggs just to be car owner. Your thoughts?
And that would be like a satellite team of Rocket One.
I think that might possibly be. I don't know all the details on that, but nothing against Boom. Boom's great for the sport. A lot of people like him, but that's probably one or two less yellows every night. I'm just gonna say.
But yeah, I mean, that tends to be the thing. Drivers that don't have a ride, they tend to go Boom usually has a ride for them. So, and it's usually like a satellite team from Rocket One.
Yeah, so that'll be interesting there. And then, of course, USMTS mod driver, Minnesota mod ace Dan Ebert, they made the announcement here a few weeks back that they're going to go open late model racing in 2025. And he's going to be driving, of course, for James Trantina. and they did not announce this. There's no official announcement on series or chassis or whatever, but sources are telling me that he has 2 brand new rockets coming, and they plan to follow the same series wherever Mark Richards goes. They plan to run the same series so they can be building a notebook together. That probably seems like a pretty darn good idea. If you're going to get a rocket, you might as well go where Rocket 1 is. That is definitely your best bet. Dan Ebert's won on the Wasota level in late models. Who do you think has a better opportunity of winning a race in 2025 in open late models? Dan Ebert or Dustin Sorensen?
I'll say Dustin Sorensen just because he will have a year of experience under his belt following the national tour.
Changa?
That's tough. I mean, Sorensen, you know, he's got a notebook now. He's seen all these tracks, and you know, a few of them he's run at, and you know, run up in the top 5, finished in the top 5 a couple times. I mean, but I think if you're running around chasing Richards, you probably got a notebook too. So, you know, driver wise, I don't know. I mean, Ebert can run as smooth as anybody on a slick racetrack. So I don't know. It's a coin flip for me.
Well,
Yeah,
and then it also depends which series they race in. I mean, if Ebert's racing Lucas and Sorensen's racing World of Outlaw, but then it depends, you know. You don't know which drivers are going to be racing in which series next year, so you can't even say which series is going to be tougher than the other right now.
right. And go ahead.
We haven't even heard the World Outlaws now come back with their, you know, their $260,000 payout. You know,
That's exactly what you just read my mind. See, that's why we work so well together. I was just going to ask that. We don't know where they're going to go. Lucas Oil announces 250 to win, right? World of Outlaws, they have a lot of money. They got big backing with World Racing Group. Is there a possibility that they come back and match it? Go for more big shows? I mean, silly season is just starting, but it's kind of a fun time of year. What's that?
I think it's pretty likely that if they want to keep, you know, the premier cars, or, you know, at least keep them kind of both on equal playing field, that they're going to have to.
Yeah, they're going to. Yeah, if one raises, the other one's going to have to follow suit. So we'll stay tuned for that to come. So Pete has a question here. Speaking of late models, rumor is that 2024 Wasota Superstock National Champion Dexton Cook is rumored to be leaning towards possibly running a late model in 2025. If that happens, which there's been no announcement yet, right? But if that happens, who is the odds-on favorite to win the 2025 Wasota Superstock National Championship if Dexton Cook moves out of that class?
Off the top of my head, I mean, you think if Kurt Myers is going to chase hard like he did this year, he would be one of the favorites. Trevor Nelson's been in contention a few times here in the last few years, so maybe now with Shane running a partial schedule and Dexton gone, you know, he runs a couple more extra shows, he might have a good shot at winning it too, you know?
Yeah, it'll be interesting. I mean, Sabraski, I mean, he could literally roll off 30. So, I mean, yeah, it'll be interesting to see. I mean, he's been a perennial powerhouse here the last few years in the super stocks and been racing hard for a natty. And if he moves up to a late model, super stock drivers, for whatever reason, transition very well to the late model class. I think he'd be just fine. He'd probably win. He'd win races. I mean, he runs right with Shane Sabraski every night in the super. And so I wouldn't expect anything different in the late model. So good luck to him, whatever he does in 2025. So Larry asked a question here, racetrack rumors, right? A lot of silly season, not just with drivers, but what are racetracks doing? What are you hearing on racetrack series, different things like that? So Bert, I got a little something from Eastern Wisconsin, but we're going to save that for just a second here. So word on the street, there's a Northern Minnesota track looking to transition, maybe possibly change nights. Nothing official yet, no official announcement yet. Grand Rapids Speedway potentially making the change from Thursdays to Friday nights in 2025. Changa, that's your stomping ground up there. Your thoughts?
Well, Well, financially for the Grand Rapids Speedway, it may be better. Selfishly, just guys from our area having an opportunity to run 4 nights a week and have an opportunity to compete to be in the top 5 or the top 10 in the national points. I feel like it's kind of a bummer, you know?
Yeah, I mean, I kind of weighed out all options. I mean, let's face it, Bert. I mean, I think you agree. Thursdays are tough. I mean, they just are, right? I mean, the culture's not there. You don't have people sticking around after the races. You don't have as many beer drinkers in the grandstands, right? So you're not selling as much beer. I looked at my race pass, and if this happens, I don't think there's looking at the points in Rapids. There's a handful of cars that probably they're going to lose to Princeton, they lose to Superior, but they might gain a few as well. There's drivers from the Bemidji area, the range from up in Hibbing that say, I'd like to race Rapids, but holy shit, 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock on a Friday is early after racing on a Thursday night. So yeah, but like Changa said, selfishly, it's like 4 nights a week up there if you're a points chaser. Yeah, it's kind of nice to have that, but yeah, it'll be interesting to see. They'll have an announcement made here within the next week, probably, on what's happening up there in Grand Rapids. But yeah, I guess Fridays are definitely better for the track, and if they're losing money and if they need to find a way to make more revenue, get more fans in the stands, Fridays would definitely be better for them than Thursdays. So we'll see what happens. Superior. They obviously probably be a little bit butthurt about that, and I get it. I mean, I probably would be too if I was them. So it's kind of a tough deal. Hopefully it all works out. So word on the street, Miller Central Speedway in South Dakota potentially. It's been for sale for a couple of years now. Rumor has it that they might not even have a season in 2025. They're kind of leaning towards not opening back up. So Dakota State Fair Speedway in Huron really doesn't run Saturdays anymore. They run 4 shows a year, something like that. They have some specials. That leaves literally a Friday track and a Sunday track in South Dakota. Yes, you have Rapid City way out west, but for those drivers in the area, you talk about losing a night to a national championship run, that's a big deal for people like Maria Brooksick, Mike Stearns, Josh Skorcheski, Chad Becker, right? These drivers, Trevor Nelson. Trevor Nelson, that's his stomping. He runs Friday, Saturday. That's a big hit to him. So if Miller doesn't race Saturdays, these South Dakota drivers literally only have Friday, Sunday. Okay. Now, let's keep in mind that Aberdeen, right? They're big buck nationals in September last year. They ran Tri-State late models and not Wasota late models at their season ending invitational. Could you see, if they drop down to 2 tracks, could you see them drivers like Chad Becker and all that saying, you know what, if I don't have a Saturday track anymore, it is what it is. I'm just going to follow the Tri-State Series. Could you see some of them South Dakota drivers follow the Tri-State Series because it's closer to them if they lose a Saturday track over there in South Dakota?
I certainly hope not. I mean, I hope this is all a bunch of BS. And they, if they did that, I mean, think of how much worse the Challenge Series would have been this year if you don't have Searing following it. And, I don't know if TPO applies. He's a North Dakota guy, but, he runs Watertown every Sunday. And, I don't know. I don't like it. I know that much. And that Tri-State Series is good, but they don't, they don't run a ton of shows, I don't think, do they?
About as many as the Challenge Series. I think they have roughly 20, and everybody speaks very highly of Mike Gross that runs that series. Sounds like he's very racer friendly. And, and a lot of those shows, right? You got Aberdeen, you got Huron, you got a lot of these tracks, Rock Rapids, Iowa. A lot of these tracks are kind of closer to them financially. If they had to choose between the NLRA, the Challenge Series, the Tri-State Series, for the South Dakota racers, it makes way more financial sense to race the Tri-State Series. Right. And if you get a whole bunch of them doing it, that could definitely put a stranglehold on that and eventually maybe phase Wasota right out of that deal. So Wasota, right, we're not knocking Wasota in this deal, but that could be trouble for Wasota. They really, really need to make some phone calls. And I get it. Casino Speedway, Todd Good, he's a Wasota board member and he owns the Casino Speedway. So obviously he's not going to make the switch, but is he going to be a Wasota board member forever? Right? He's got a one-term deal. I mean, if them drivers decide to make the change and go tri-state racing, he could very easily be like, at the end of my term, we're just going to go ahead and we're going to have more tri-state races there. So it's an interesting deal. Now, with that said, I heard a little rumor that if they do not run on Saturdays, there's some potential the casino could either make the complete switch from Sundays to Saturdays, or at the very least, run some Saturday shows in 2025. That's an interesting deal as well. Madison's only 10 miles outside of the mile radius to make that happen. So by rule, they can do that. But man, do they really want to? I mean, some of the Madison guys drive over and they run Madison and they race over at Casino. So that would be a tough deal to go head to head. And let's face it, if you're a Wasota board member, probably not a good idea to switch and go head to head with literally the closest track to you miles wise and run against them on a given night. I think that he almost can't, as a Wasota board member, do that. What do you think?
I don't even have a thought on it. It's all bad. There's nothing good about the whole deal. I think I want Miller to figure out someone to take the reins and keep that place open.
Yeah, that definitely needs to happen. So if somebody's in the market, wants to buy a racetrack, live out in the middle of South Dakota, Miller Central Speedway is for sale. The One to Go Show Speedway out in Miller Central, right? We'll get Bert Lehman out there running that, since you have more time on your hands. You're no longer the editor of Full Throttle Magazine. You got more time on your hands. You might as well go do that. So congratulations, Bert, new promoter at Miller.
I don't have more time on my hands, but there's a racetrack for sale in Wisconsin, so I can stay closer to home. And
all right, so you're buying a track in Wisconsin. You heard it here first. Congratulations, Bert. North Central Speedway up in Brainerd, Minnesota. Now they made the transition to mostly IMCA classes here a few years back. A little bit of a falling out with Wasota. They still have supers. They still have Mod 4s. That place, Cliff's getting a little older. You know, he had a health scare here last year. Word on the street, and I'm not going to get into names because I don't know if that's quite public knowledge, but from my understanding, sources are telling me that the sale of that track to a new owner, former racer, former superstock / late model guy, is very close to having the ink dried on purchasing the North Central Speedway in Brainerd. So stay tuned on that. I don't want to, my sources kind of said the name is kind of under the radar, so I don't want to just go ahead and throw that out there, but be pretty cool to see. Mosquito Speedway up in Thunder Bay area, Nolaloo, Ontario. We talked about this a while back. Thunder City Speedway, that the culture there is off the charts. Sounds like Mosquito Speedway going to have a pretty full schedule next year, and they're going to have 2 tracks to race up there. Is that going to hurt or help racing and fan count overall if they have 2 choices? Do you think that will take some fans away from the Thunder City Speedway that go over to Mosquito Speedway, or do you think them fans are going to travel well and just hit both of them on a weekly basis?
How far away are the 2 tracks from each other?
Hour maybe, but they're on different nights.
Oh, right. The diehards will go to both.
I think they're all diehards up there. They get like 3,000 people a night.
Well,
Crazy up there.
They sell beer at both tracks.
They do sell beer.
Then it'll be good for everybody.
I tell you what, when we're talking about a lot of places, racetracks closing and this and that, racing is flourishing up there. So I think we all need to do ourselves a favor and at least make one trip up there in 2025. We talked about this last year, just to take a trip down memory lane of what the culture used to be like in the States, and just to go up there. So I'm gonna have to put that on the list. Greenbush.
Good luck dethroning the champions if that happens too, you know?
Yeah, no kidding. Well, maybe because is that going to be more or less traveling for them? Because if they do that, are they going to go? Are they going to race Wednesday and then go to the States on Friday, back up there on Saturday, back to the States on Sunday? That's an interesting deal too, because that's a hell of a lot more traveling. So
is it easier for them to win up there than it is in the States?
Yeah, I don't know that it necessarily is at Thunder Bay, especially Midwest mods when they get 50 of them every single night. So I mean, they got some pretty stout cars up there. But and remember, they had a street stock guy came down. God dang, I don't remember his name. But he came down. He was on the podium at the Little Dream in the street stock. And he wasn't even the guy that won most of the races up there. He's the guy that ran well, but a guy came down from Thunder Bay, finished on the podium at the Little Dream. So tell you what, and they travel well too. So I tell you what, I'm excited about racing up there. Greenbush and Hibbing, both under new management. Hibbing's a board run track. So every couple years they got a vote and whatnot, but it sounds like they got new president, new board. Over at the Hibbing Raceway, Greenbush, they reopened, and I don't know all the details, but I understand that they're going to have a new promoter in 2025. Trapper is out, new guy in, and last but not least, little news: Dirt Kings late models, Bert. Kings late models. Word on the street is they are expanding their reigns potentially, adding a class and having a USRA crate late style class and having a small mini series. Don't know all the details, but I talked to a driver that's pretty well in the know, and it kind of sounds like they're leaning that way. Gonna see if we can find a few more details for the next show, but sounds like USRA might expand and do a 604 kind of a JV crate late, whatever you want to call it, B late model series as well in 2025. So Bert, there's your homework assignment. See if you can get a hold of old Jason and see what you can find out. See if you can get some word directly from Jason, the promoter of the Dirt Kings. Can you do that for us?
I will try.
All right. And last but not least, we got a question here from Alex. So you guys have seen online, right, that the 23XL NASCAR team, right, owned by Michael Jordan, Denny Hamlin, that whole group, they got a pretty major lawsuit going on against NASCAR antitrust deal. And essentially, one of the topics in this deal is, why do we got to get our chassis from this guy? Why can't we get chassis built wherever we want, right? Because as long as they meet specs, who gives a shit? And there's more to it than that. If they win this lawsuit, how big of a trickle down could that be in all the other forms of racing, specifically dirt racing? Could we feel the effect in dirt racing if in fact they win that lawsuit against NASCAR? Could that affect dirt racing? And to add to that, he's like, you look at Wasota, the B mods have to run a spec carb spacer from Speedway. They have to run spec bell housing. Street stocks have to run a specific set of headers, right? All of them have to run specific tires, right? So remember back, this was late 90s, 98, 99, somewhere in there. Wasota was sued by Ernie Brookings because they allowed certain different transmissions, but they did not allow the Ernie slide transmission. And he cited the antitrust lawsuit, sued them, and won. So if they win that, could that be the end of specific, you have to run part A, part B, part C from specific manufacturer? What do you think?
I mean, it's possible. I mean, I think the biggest contention in that lawsuit is the now I can't think of the word.
The charter.
Charter, yeah. I was going to say franchise, but charter. I think that's the biggest complaint in that lawsuit. But if they challenging other things via antitrust, I mean, it's possible it could trickle down, but you're going to need people to file lawsuits. I mean, and that costs money to file lawsuits. So it depends. It depends if anybody wants to challenge things.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. It sounds like NASCAR's playing hardball because the 23XL team was late to the party on applying for their charter, and essentially it sounds like they're not giving them one, is what it sounds like, and they are taking that money and kind of splitting it between the teams that got their stuff in time. So I don't know a lot about it, but Michael Jordan and the 23XL team and NASCAR are definitely not on speaking terms. I can tell you that.
Well, and that's the bad thing about NASCAR right now. I mean, when I was following NASCAR, you could build a car in your garage and you could take it down the Daytona and you could try to qualify for the Daytona 500. Those days are long past. I mean, with the charter and all of this other stuff, and the chase has been going on in NASCAR, and I haven't watched a single. I can't even remember the last NASCAR race I watched this year. A significant portion of it. I've watched the tail end of a few, but it's. And I was the biggest NASCAR fan there was when I was younger.
Yeah, I mean, me and our dad, Changa and I's dad. I mean, NASCAR died when he died. Of course, Dale Earnhardt, and I think a lot of us, our generation, it's like, well, NASCAR died. That was the era of NASCAR, and there's a lot of reasons. We don't need to go down that, but it's NASCAR certainly has changed, and they're not sitting in. I don't think they're sitting in a very good spot overall. I mean, they did sign a major deal with the streaming and all that type of stuff or whatever, but yeah, I don't know. I mean, things trickle down. A lot of things that happen, in NASCAR eventually trickle down to other aspects of racing. So I guess we'll see what happens. That's a good question. I don't know enough about the lawsuit to really be able to say, but I guess we'll have to follow it and see what happens. So 2024 Pick'ems, brought to you by Brad Parsons Soil and Ag Solutions. So if you're in Western Minnesota, the Dakotas, and you want to be more successful in farming, you need to have higher yields, right? Because even when crop prices are down, higher yields will still make you more money. Well, how do you have higher yields? By having the right stuff in your spray packages. And why not give Brad a call, right? At least get the information. He's got several people that are fans of the show that have tried his product, had great success, and are looking to expand on that in 2025. So give Brad a call at 320-219-3542. That's Brad Parsons Soil and Ag Solutions. So Brad and Worker Bee Kent, and then Matt representing Amsoil, One to Go Show, and Impact Health Sharing. We have all put a little bit of extra money together for whoever wins our Pick'ems contest is going to be able to pick a driver, and we're going to get to sponsor a driver, maybe multiple drivers in 2025. Just make sure to have an extra big One to Go Show sticker on there for Billy, because if you have a One to Go Show sticker on there, Billy will threaten you in tech, and he will threaten to take your whole car apart. So just make sure to have an extra one on there and say hi from Ryan. So this past week, Curtis, defending champ, had the big week. He's plus 14. Coach, who had hockey tonight, so he's had some youth hockey tryouts of some kind, so he's helping out there. He wasn't able to be with us. He had 13. Uper, Manbundan, and Changa were plus 12. Dano plus 10. Myself and Bert were plus 8. Beefcake plus 6. Worker Bee plus 5, and the newlywed there, Bromance, plus 4. So yeah, he's kind of got to get it together there. He might be a quitter on us. He's kind of not liking these picks unless it's late models. He's not, his fun meter's pegged. So we'll see what happens there. He's on the struggle bus. So our points right now, Changa, what happened to your point lead there, guy? Whoa.
Well, my
What?
point lead was never over like 2, so I mean it's been a battle with you, I and Curtis here for the last, I don't know, 5-6 weeks now.
I've had a rough couple of weeks.
I think
So
the bigger question is what happened to you?
no shit. I said this multiple times on the show. I suck at this deal. I'm terrible at picks. Okay, I'm just, it is what it is.
I'm
So
the new
Kurt-
guy and I don't know nothing about IMCA or any of this crap we're picking. I'm just winging it.
So Bert, I'm competing against him, and every week I get, well, who do you think's going to be there? Who do you think's going to be here? Who would you pick here? He's asking me, and he's asking you, Bert. It's like, why should I fucking help you? You're ahead of me. Why would I do that? So Curtis is at.
I tell him my picks every week just so he can do something different.
Yeah, okay. All right. So 420 for Curtis. Chong is at 417. You're only 3 points back. I'm at 407. Yeah, not good. Uper at 348. It's really close here between 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th, and even 9th. It's really tight. 348 for Uper, 342 for Bert, 340 for Dano, 337 for Worker Bee, 336 for the 29 star, 329 for Man Bun Dan. And then we get down to Bromance at 302 and Beefcake at 263. So those guys got a little work to do. See if Beefcake can catch Bromance by the end of the year. So that's kind of where we're sitting now. We still have a couple months. Racing is much, much less. Here's what we're going to pick this week. And in the past, we have kind of said what our picks are going to be, but a lot of these shows, we have no idea who's even going to be there because it's not your traditionals. There's a few we probably have a pretty good idea. In fact, those ones we could even say, if you want to say who we're picking on those ones, that's fine. If not, that's fine too. But we're going to pick IMCA race there for Bert. Hustle on the High Banks at Marshalltown. They're having a race here this weekend. A-Mains on Saturday. We're going to pick the IMCA mods and the IMCA stock cars at that one. Then they're having the Mason-Dixon 100, 3 nights of racing at the legendary Pennsboro Speedway, revamped by Barry Braun and the XR crew. They race, of course, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. We're going to pick the late models at that. And I got to be honest with you guys. I looked at the car count for that deal, and I don't know. It's not looking real promising. I hope they get a good turnout for all the work he put into that deal and all the time and effort and all the hype. I hope it works out. Maybe the support classes hope they get a big crowd, but I'm pretty skeptical, man. A 5 mile racetrack, there ain't a lot of people. I'm guessing that is definitely not on Turbo's Fun Tour. Okay, let's just be honest. It's not on.
Well,
okay,
and I mean, before the show here, I was on Facebook, and they actually took a drone and they went all the way around the speedway. Those corners look really tight and narrow. So it'll be interesting.
Yeah, for sure. And that's going to be on XR Plus. If you have that subscription, and you can buy it monthly. You can check that out. USMTS mods with a pair of shows this weekend back in action. They're at Lakeside and 81 Speedway. You guys care to say who you're picking at that? If one does, we all will. If neither of you want to, that's fine too. Do you kind of have in mind who you're going to pick?
I haven't done my picks yet, so.
Okay, so we'll go ahead and we'll pick for you. We can do that. Yeah, we can kind of wait on that. I kind of have mine jotted down for that, but if you don't have yours ready, that's fine. World of Outlaw Sprint Cars with a pair of shows. They're going down to sunny California at Riverside this weekend. And then they got in Meridian, Mississippi, Why Not Speedway 30th Annual Fall Classic, a pair of late model shows down there. And the promoter of that track actually was the early race leader. The night that I won at East Bay, he was an early race leader in the modifieds. Rodney Wing, the promoter down there. Incidentally, that is on Turbo's Fun Tour because that's where he's going to be. It looks like Dennis Erb Jr., Cade Dillard, Drake Troutman. So I know them for, I don't know who else is going to be there, but sounds like it'll be a pretty fun show down there. And then the Keystone Cup up in Bedford, Pennsylvania. They're going to run Friday and Saturday as well. 24,000 to win on Saturday. So expect to see the Pennsylvania contingent. I figured Troutman would head there, but Troutman's going to Mississippi. I looked at his schedule today, so I figured that he'd be in PA, and especially he only lives like 20 minutes from the track, if that, 15 minutes from the track. So it was interesting to me that he's not going to Bedford, he's going to Why Not. So not sure what that's all about. Maybe it's a sponsorship deal or car owner. I'm not really sure. So that's where we sit for this week. And what out of them shows, out of what's going on this weekend, what are you guys most excited about? What are you looking forward to? I mean, them are the main shows here this week. What has your attention?
Well, I mean, I stated this last week. I mean, Pennsboro has my attention. Like I said, I'm not sure how good the racing's going to be, but there's a lot of tradition with that track. And, I really don't remember, the racing there. And, that was kind of before the internet age. And so I am curious to see them racing at Pennsboro again.
Changa?
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I think Pennsboro's kind of interesting just to see it for us people that have never seen the place before, But as far as interesting racing, probably not so much. I mean, USMTS stuff is always interesting, so that'll, I'm sure that's going to be the best racing, and then that Why Not race will probably be a lot of fun as well.
Yeah, them are the two on my list as well. The USMTS mods have been highly entertaining all year. The point battle is only like 31 point difference between Jake Tim is third. Let me look here. Jake Tim is 31 points behind Jim Chisholm with 6 races left. 2 of them happening this weekend. Still possible. He could definitely close that gap in a hurry. I mean, 31 points is one bad night of racing, and you're right there. So we'll see what happens with the USMTS. That's on Race and Dirt, by the way. So our last segment of the show here, 3 bold predictions brought to you by Elevate-Visual Video Productions. That is Brandon. He does a lot in video productions. He does a lot of drone work. He'll help out realtors. He does a lot of different stuff. Check them out online, Elevate-Visual Video Productions. So, Bert, you had a few. I had a shit ton come off the board, but Bert, you had a few come off the board. You said 2 non-Lucas regulars would be on the podium at Eldora. First was Bobby Pierce. Okay. Second, who was second and third?
T-Mac and RTJ, so we didn't get the point.
Yep, T-Mac and RTJ. So, nope, not for Bert. You said that Hudson O'Neal would have more points overall than all 4 drivers. That definitely did not happen. And you did say, this is at least how our statistician had it written down. I don't remember exactly if this is correct, but it must be. He said one of your predictions ways back was RTJ would have the points lead going into the playoffs. And
yeah. that was when he lost his ride. And
okay.
When he lost his ride, I said he would still be leading in points.
He was leading by a bunch. So that definitely was the case. So you got that one correct. That one should have came off the board quite a while ago. It didn't. So I had a pile of them come off the board here. This past week, I said Jake O'Neal would win at least one and podium at least one at Veto. Well, that was before I realized Kate Dillard was going to be in the house, so that didn't work out very good.
I was going to say, because you picked Dillard all 3 nights.
Yeah, I made that prediction, and then all of a sudden I saw Dillard is going to be there. I'm like, ah, shit. Well, I guess we'll hedge on that one, and I took Dillard, which worked out. But yeah, he did get the one podium. He got second on the second night on the second show, but he DNF'd the first one and the finale, so I'm not sure what happened to Jake O'Neal. Also, I said that the combination of Bobby Pierce, Mike Marlar, and Hudson O'Neal would have a better finish than Rocket One, Devin Moran, and Jonathan Davenport. And thanks to Jonathan Davenport's DNF, that was the case. A while back, I said Tanner English in his BMF chassis, and I don't know if he switched back. He might be. Is he back in a Longhorn now, Bert? I'm not sure. I think he kind of bounced back and forth.
I think he's a Longhorn again.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think he's back in a Longhorn.
But I said that he was going to have 10 or more wins. I thought he was going to have a big year here in 24. He's at 3 right now, and I don't even think he has 10 shows left. So I think we can safely take that one as a no. I also said that in the world of outlaw sprint cars, David Gravel and Carson Macedo would be in the top 3 in points, along with Logan Schuchart. And I think Logan Schuchart is mathematically eliminated from finishing in the top 3 in the points. He's like 300 points back or something like that. So that one I'll just take as wrong. If something drastically changes, we'll fix it, but I don't see that happening. I said Sunshine Tyler Courtney would win the high limit points. Not unless he changed his name to Brad Sweet. He did not. I said RTJ would lead the points by over 300 going into the playoffs and then lose the championship for the second year in a row. Nope. I said Devin Moran would win the Lucas Oil Championship. Nope. I said I suck at this deal, right? I said Joey Jensen would be the Wasota Midwest Mod National Championship, which I owed Changa $1 on that one. Nope, that did not happen either. Now, here's one here I think we can probably safely take off the board. If something changes, we'll revisit it. I said no new tracks would be added to speed weeks. And the Lucas Oil schedule dropped, and as far as I know, the World of Outlaws only has Volusia down there. So I think it's safe to say that no tracks are being added for 2025. So I'm going to take that one as a yes. I also said that the smooth operator Bobby Pierce would have the most World of Outlaw wins in 2024. Now, it's kind of funny that Changa brought up what he brought up earlier, because I kind of took some notes on this too. It's kind of weird how that happened. So he had 13 so far. There's 3 races left. He's got 13 World of Outlaw late model wins. The second most is 5 wins shared by 3 drivers. What 3 drivers do you guys think have 5 World of Outlaw late model wins?
Shirley and Hoffman, and then probably Gustin.
That would have been my guess.
Yep. Sheppy has 3. How many World of Outlaw late model wins for RTJ?
0.
Bert?
2.
0. And like you said, so RTJ has 12 Lucas wins, right? And Jonathan Davenport has 9. Pierce has 7. So between the 2 series, that is 20 wins between the 2 series, and he only ran a very limited Lucas Oil schedule. I don't think it's even an argument who the #1 dirt late model driver in America is. That's Bobby Pierce. It's not even a conversation. So Uper had a few come off the board as well. He said a while back Kennedy Swan was going to have a breakout season in her mod and win 5 or more features, and I think she had 0. She ran good, but she didn't win. He said Shane Sabraski would have the most Wasota late model wins at the time the Silver 1000 is ran, and that's not the case. I think Tyler Peterson had that. And then he said the winner of the Dirt Track World Championship at Eldora would be a non-top 4 driver in points. And of course, it wasn't even a Lucas guy. It was Bobby Pierce. So you get that one correct. And he said RTJ would win the championship. And he said that going into last week. And so some of us predicted a meltdown, and he predicted the championship, and he was correct on that. Coach had a few come off the board as well. He said World of Outlaw sprint car drivers over this past weekend would have 6 different podium drivers. There was 5. Bad beat. Gravel had a pair of them. In fact, both contenders, Gravel had a pair of podiums. Macedo had 2 top 5s. I think he had a 3rd and a 5th or whatever. Gravel edged ahead of him just a little bit more over this past weekend. He's still in striking distance, so. He said 2 of the final 4 Lucas Oil late model drivers at Eldora would DNF. Klaus Cigar, 1 DNF, And he said RTJ would DNF and lose the championship. Well, he tried to, but he did not. And then he said a while back, and I'll get your guys' input on this. There'll be more premier drivers in high limit sprint car racing in 2024 than there is in World of Outlaw sprint cars in 2024. Okay. So I kind of made a list, and you can tell me if you think I'm off here. Okay. World of Outlaws, I would say David Gravel, Carson Macedo, Donnie Schatz, Sheldon Hodenschild, Logan Schuchart, Buddy Kofoid, Giovanni Scelzi. Any argument on them? High limits, Brad Sweet, Tyler Courtney, Rico Abreu, Brent Marks, James McFadden, Jacob Allen, Corey Day.
I don't know about Jacob Allen.
I would say as much as Schuchart, probably, right? I mean, he won a few World of Outlaw races. He had a little bit of a off
They're all
season
the
last
same.
year.
Tech is the same as them guys.
So, I mean,
and Kyle Larson too. Did you say him?
Yeah, but he didn't run a full season. Do you count him?
Yeah, I count him. He's a premier sprint car driver.
But he didn't run a full season. He only ran partial season. So, I mean, he ran World of Outlaw races too, right? Brad Sweet ran World of Outlaw races too. So you can count, you know what I mean? So as far as the point drivers, that's 7 and 7. And Corey Day didn't, I mean, he had a hell of a year, but he was kind of unknown before this year, wasn't he?
You may say 7 and 7, but I'd take the outlaw list over the high limit list.
Yeah, I think I would too. And at the very worst, equal at the very worst, right? So I would say that
equal next year.
No,
I don't think so. I think there'll be some people go back to World Outlaws.
Okay, well, you might have to save that for a bold prediction. So I'm going to give him a no. Me and the statistician Uper decided that's probably a no. So as far as we keep track of correct predictions and percentage correct, and leading the way in both categories is our statistician, the Uper. Yeah, I think he might be pencil screwing us. And in fact, we're just going to go ahead and call him the Burt hater. Because and we're going to need a little input, but we'll get to this in a second. So Uper is at 29 correct. I'm at 23, so I'm gaining on him. Coach is at 21, Bert's at 20, the peanut gallery at 19. Percentage correct, Uper at 31.9, I'm at 25, and then you have Coach at 23.9, peanut gallery at 22.4, and Bert is at 21.3. So Uper leading the way on that. We got a little work to do to try to catch up to him. So we are doing before we get into our bold predictions here, as a group, there's 11 of us in our pick'ems. We're doing a draft, so to speak, for the World Finals. And we got, and the rules, right? And Bert might even have the rules. You might even be able to read them off. But essentially the rules are this: 8 rounds snake draft, right? Just like an NFL, NFL draft, right? NFL fantasy football draft. And there's late models, there's sprint cars, there's big block mods. And the rules specifically state is you get 8 drivers and you get points for, the feature, and for the B mains, we're also going to give points just in case we have drivers that we pick that don't make the show. We can kind of separate them out instead of giving everybody one. And you can pick any driver you want. If you want to pick 8 sprint car drivers, great. If you want to pick 3 late models and 3 sprint cars and 2 big block mods, great. But the rules state in there 8 drivers and you get points for these. So Bert tried to pull a fast one. Okay. And he's like, I'm going to take Mad Max McLaughlin. And I'm looking at the draft because it's in our group chat, right? And looking down through this, and I'm like, well, how the fuck does Bert already have a pick for the next round? That's like 10 picks from now. Like he picked Max McLaughlin here, and then Uper sent it over, and it's got Max McLaughlin like way down here in the next round. I'm like, well, he sure the hell can't pick his next round before all these other people do. That's bullshit, right? And so then Uper is like, well, what are you picking them for? The late models or the modifieds? And Bert's answer is like, I'm just picking the driver. Says I got to have 8 drivers. And if he happens to run both classes, I just get double points, and I got a loophole in this deal. And Uper comes back, no. If you pick him for both classes, then you only get to pick 6 extra drivers. So I don't know. I don't know what I think on this. I think Uper might be fucking you a little bit here. Because it's an unwritten rule.
He wouldn't even let me. He wouldn't even let me use them in a different draft slot. He said,
well, you can when it gets to that time, but you can't just pick them ahead, like 9 spots ahead.
Well, yeah. I didn't pick him. I picked my driver.
Yeah,
right.
And Uper put it in there for the next.
Oh, Uper put it in for the next round? Okay.
Yeah, I didn't put it in there.
Yeah, so the question is, if you pick a driver, so RTJ might run a sprint car. I heard a little rumbling about that. I don't know if that's true or not.
Well, he's on my team.
Yeah, he's on Bert's team as well, right? So
Bert's gonna have 11 drivers.
So essentially Bert has RTJ and Max McLaughlin, okay? And we'll have 6 additional drivers. If both of those drivers do double duty,
what if Sorensen does too?
And if Sorensen, which I made that up, I was just fucking with Bert.
No, but it could happen.
Right. So if a driver, right, if you pick a driver, should you have to designate what class that driver's racing, or should you get points for all feature events and all B main events that driver participates in?
Bert, you take this one.
So by the letter of the rule, right? The letter of the rule, it doesn't clarify that in there, right? So I don't know. So that's definitely an unfair advantage for sure. I wish I would have thought of it. But you got to remember. So Bert, I don't know if you know this. Uper was a tech guy.
Well, I found that out after I called him Billiam.
Yep. Yeah. So he actually was a Wasota tech guy at a Wasota racetrack. Okay. And he actually teched at the Wasota 100. So he's like Billy's little brother. Right. So here's the deal. Is it really surprising to you that he's creating unwritten rules? Is that really a shock? Are you really surprised by this? Right.
Well,
so I don't know.
Well, and that was one of my responses in our text thread was, now I know what it's like to be a Wasota driver with all these unwritten rules.
Yeah. So Bert, what do you think? Do you think that being that we have the race none of the races have happened, right? It wasn't now. Probably you should have just waited till the very end, or we should have just waited till the very end, and you should have just said, no, I get double points. But being that it was caught before the even completion of the draft, right? Do you feel that you should have to designate a class for that driver, or do you think you should get points for all races they participate in? What do you think?
Well, my personal opinion is I should get points for all races they participate in. But I was willing to compromise, but he wanted no part of that, and he laid down the law.
Changa, what do you think?
Well, what I want to know, Bert, is what was your intention? I mean, were you intending to take him as a late model driver or as a modified driver, or did you actually intend to take him and get double?
I intended to take him and get double.
I'm fucking proud of you. I'm proud of you. Atta boy. That's how winning is done right there. Fucking Bert. You know, it's no wonder you're a fucking Packer fan. You but cheaters over there in Wisconsin. It just makes sense, right? I get it, you know. So we're gonna.
Well, I mean,
I don't know.
The thing is, we don't even know if he's gonna do double duty.
Right.
True. RTJ. I mean, he was practicing with a sprint car, so I don't know if he's gonna race it or not. But I don't know. We might have to put this to a vote within our group. We might have to put it to a vote within our group. We might have to put in a vote. But fans, hey, let us know. Message us or whatever. Put in the comments. Should Bert get to count all the points here, or is this kind of like skewing the rules in his favor, getting an unfair advantage? I don't know. What do you think? So we'll have to revisit that one.
Well, it's definitely pushing the boundaries, but what's the saying in racing? You're not cheating if you're not trying. You're not cheating if you're not trying.
Yeah. You're not trying hard if you're not cheating. That's for sure. So I'm kind of proud of you for that one. That's kind of good. So I don't know. It's just like there it is right there. A freaking no doubt a former Wasota Tech guy, skewing the rules to give himself an advantage and take away the ingenuity and the thought process of a participant. It makes that I can see him doing that.
Well, Changa asked me what my intention was when I took my actual intention was, my thought was he's an outlaw regular. So
he gets a provisional.
So he gets provisionals, and then I'll if he does double duty, then I'll fight for those points.
Right. I like it.
All right. So here's the official ruling is this: you get to have him as a sprint car guy. All right. So late model it is there for Max McLaughlin. So 3 bold predictions by each of us. And I used to say sometimes not so bold, but evidently they must be bold because we never get shit right. So there is that. So we'll start with Bert. We'll go to Changa. I got Youpers here and I got my own here. So Bert, your first prediction of the week.
Well, you guys touched on it earlier in the show, and I was afraid you guys would steal it, so I'll say it right away. Bobby Pierce will go Lucas Oil Racing next year.
Wow, I like it. That would be chase the money there and do something different. That would be big news. That would be big news. All right. Changa?
Well, if I'm not mistaken, the peanut gallery is who I'm playing for here.
Yep.
So they're in last place in this deal, so I need some low-hanging fruit. But I'm not going to take it quite yet. I mean, this might be a little bit low-hanging, but so they got 3 races at Pennsboro, right? Is that correct?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay. Pierce and Moran, in no particular order, will finish 1, 2, all 3 races.
I wish Coach was here right now to fucking discipline you. Slap shot at your nuts or something. Yeah, low hanging fruit there. Like literally,
it's a 5-8-mile track. Pierce has a history of blowing up. I mean,
that is valid. He could DNF. That is true. Yeah, that is true.
I mean, if you start 4th, you're probably not going to get better than 3rd.
Yeah, the only other driver there that even is remotely somebody even heard of is Tyler Carpenter. So I don't know. That we'll give you that. That's a little tap in. We'll give you the tap in. You're hanging out in the crease, shot save, goalie's over here, wide open net. You just kind of tap
just
it
hit
on.
me in the foot and went in.
All right, just tap it in. It's not a goalie goal. It's a tap in. All right. Youper's first prediction: World of Outlaws sprint cars at Riverside in California here this week. Pair of shows down there. California-based drivers, California drivers will sweep the podiums. All podiums by California drivers, and Carson Macedo wins at least one of the 2 races. So California CA posse sweep with a Carson Macedo winning at least one night. I'm going to kind of, I had some different ones here, but I'm going to kind of go with something Bert. So Bert kind of made the prediction, Bobby Pierce to Lucas. I'm going to go with a segue, a prediction here. I'm going to go Brandon Shepherd to Rocket 1 to World of Outlaws. Brandon Shepherd to Rocket 1 to World of Outlaws. I'm gonna go with that prediction.
And both have to happen for it to be correct?
Correct. Yeah. Yep. So yeah, Brandon Shepard driving Rocket 1 in 2025 in the World of Outlaws
Okay,
Series.
so if Richards is driving Rocket 1 and he's driving Rocket 1S, that don't count.
Driving for Mark Richards. Brandon Shepard driving for Mark Richards, whatever they call the number. It could be B5, who knows, right? But he's going to drive a Rocket
Or
House
Rocket
car
in Race World of Outlaws.
in Race World of Outlaw. All right, Bert, your second prediction.
I'm gonna go World of Outlaws. In 2025, they will go to a chase format, similar to Lucas.
That could happen. That could happen. I like it. All right, Changa.
If you saw what I had written down, you would smack me. I had 6 or fewer Lucas/Woo cars at Pennsboro. You don't like that, do you? I mean, my friends on the peanut gallery think it's great.
Wow. I predict that this week, Saturday comes after Friday.
All right. Well, I'll tell you what. I'll skip that one. I'll use number 3, and I'll think of something new then. All right.
Unbelievable.
Okay, so this one's a fun one. Okay, the One to Go Show World Finals draft will not be done till the day of the actual race.
Fuck, at this rate, it might not be done till next year's World Finals. We started a week or so ago, and we're only through. I don't know. Are we all the way through round 3 yet? Maybe.
Yeah, I think we started round 4.
Oh, okay. Yeah, we got 5 rounds to go. We got, and now it's getting harder too because all the kind of the top tier drivers. So now it's going to be that could happen. That could happen. So as we get, you know what, I'm going to push like fucking crazy though on that. About 3 days before and be like, we got to get this shit done. So
yeah, but guess what? It's going to come to my turn eventually.
Fair enough. We got enough time there for old Uper to get the picks all in for us. So speaking of Uper, his second prediction, USMTS modified racing, Lakeside and 81, I think they're at this week. The combination of Jake Tim and Tanner Mullins will have a better average finish over the 2 nights than Rodney Sanders and Jim Chisholm. So Jake Tim and Tanner Mullins, better average finish than Jim Chisholm, Rodney Sanders. My second prediction, we're going to go down to Meridian, Mississippi, Why Not Speedway. Turbo Tyler Erb will be on the podium both nights. Turbo Tyler Erb.
Low-hanging fruit.
Well, I tell you what, I mean, we'll see how dry it is, but yeah, you got that's a little bit less low-lying fruit than it is at Pennsboro because he at least has 3 other cars that I know of: Troutman, Dennis Erb, Cade Dillard. Them are some guys to contend with. I don't know who else is going to be there. That's the thing. It's like RTJ could show. I have no idea. I have no clue who else is going to Why Not, and that's exactly why we're not doing our picks until Friday, so we kind of have an idea who's there. All right, Bert. White flag in the air. Last lap. 3rd lap around the track for Bert Lehman.
I will say Jake Tim will win at least 1 feature this weekend and be on the podium at least 1 feature win and 2 podium finishes.
Okay.
In the 2 races. So 2 podium finishes with at least 1 feature win.
And so that if he does that, he'll likely chop the lead down a little bit. He's 31 points back of Jim Chisholm. And I got to be honest, with 6 races left, I hope it's within like 10 points going into the final weekend. That would be spectacular, but we'll see what happens. All right, Changa.
I'll take a page out of Coach's book and I'll say 6 different podium guys in the USMTS races.
6 different podiums, straight up parity. All right, Youpers, third and final prediction for Bert. It says Max McLaughlin will have a better average finish over the 3 nights in his late model than he does in the big block mod. Now, if he only races the late model, this prediction does not count. Okay.
Who made that pick?
That was Jeff. Yeah, that was Jeff. Yeah.
He'll do better in a big block mod than he will in the late model if he actually has one there, but he ain't gonna have one anyway.
I would agree. If he has the mod there, he will run better in the mod than he does in the late model. I would definitely agree with that. All right. I am gonna go with I had these down as 2 separate ones, but I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna have a parlay here. I'm a points guy. I like points battles. Okay. So World of Outlaws sprints and USMTS mods, as it sits right now, David Gravel is 78 points ahead of Carson Macedo. And as we said, Jim Chisholm is 31 points ahead of Jake Tim. There is 5 races left in World of Outlaw, 2 this weekend, 3 at the World Finals. There's 6 races left in USMTS. Both Macedo and Jake Tim will chop at least 15 points off of the point lead this week. So Macedo will gain 15 points on gravel and Jake Tim will gain 15 points or more on Jim Chisholm. So the second place is going to make it a little bit closer this week in both of those points battles. So yeah, that's our predictions for the week. Any other last closing thoughts? Anything that we didn't touch on? Anything else that comes to mind before we close out episode 244?
Well, I don't know. I was going to mention it earlier. And I don't know. I just found it kind of fluky. Did you guys see at Ogilvy after the feature winners won? They did what they called the booby draw.
I did not see that.
So what they do is they got this big old honking brazier, and it's got every position that started the feature in it, and the winning driver would draw out of it, and whatever position he picked, that driver would get some extra money or something like that, you know? Well, 2 of the feature winners picked themselves.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh boy. Well, that's good for them. That's good for them, I guess. So yeah, good for them doing something creative with that deal. I mean, it must be a breast cancer awareness deal because everything was pinked out. I guess they pinked out the whole place down there. So yeah, it's kind of cool to do something innovative like that. That's kind of a neat deal. So Bert, anything else in your neck of the woods? You hearing from any of them Eastern Wisconsin drivers? What's going on over there? Pretty quiet on that Eastern front.
Ron Berna has his late model up for sale. Hopefully that doesn't mean that he's getting out of racing, but it's a 2021 Longhorn that Tim McCready raced because he bought it from Tim McCready. So if anybody,
well, you're gonna have to throw a text out there, Bert. See, find out, get the scoop, find out what's going on.
So
you should buy that and put a house car driver in it on the track that you're gonna buy in Eastern Wisconsin is what you should do. You know, with all that money that you got over there. So well, that's it. So
you know what? I got one more for you, Ryan.
What do you got?
I don't know if you guys saw that last week, but I got Daryl Nelson got to ring the bell down at the Mayo Clinic for his last or his 20th treatment. And
nice.
I guess he was done with that treatment down at the Mayo Clinic. So just wanted to say congratulations and hope things are getting better for you.
Yeah, hammer cancer. We are big Daryl Nelson fans on this show, and if you're not, well, you suck, and it just is what it is. So yeah, it's great to see. I mean, I tell you, some of that stuff hits close to home. I mean, there's, it just never fails. The more people that we talk to, more people we know, then all of a sudden you find this person's sick and that person's sick and this happens. So I guess that's something to end it on. Just remember that everybody's going through some shit, and a lot of people keep that shit to themselves. So try to be as good as you can to people because you have no idea what people are going through. Bert, speaking of that, how's mom doing?
Yeah, I was gonna say, I was gonna bring that up. Yesterday she actually went home. So
Awesome.
she's doing very good. She's on her own again, and well, not on her own, but she's living by herself again in her apartment. So that's all good news.
That is good news. That's great to hear. So yeah, try to be nice to people. Do what you can to spread the love out there. And we all love this sport. We like to hammer on each other once in a while, but at the end of the day, we all kind of have the same goal in mind, and that's keep racing strong. And racing's about relationships as well. So as always, I'm Ryan. That is Chonga filling in for Coach Kraus and the legendary Bert Lehman. Thanks for tuning in to the One to Go show.
Thanks for tuning in, everyone. Hope you enjoyed the show. If you did, please leave a review and subscribe. It is Puka. And Goat Sports has another show out there by podcast, Facebook, and YouTube. It's the Tea with Miss McGill show. Covers hockey, high school hockey in northern Minnesota. So if you're into hockey, you can find us on podcast under Tea with Miss McGill. You can find us on YouTube or Facebook, Goat Sports Media LLC. Yours truly and Coach Reed Larson. We break it down every week. We also do some interesting interviews. We'd love to have you. So tell your friends, tell your enemies, and we'll catch you next week.